The KwaZulu-Natal government believes that the recent unrest and superspreader events are the contributing factors for the increase in daily new infections of COVID-19. The number of active daily cases in KwaZulu-Natal has surpassed those in Gauteng at the moment. Meanwhile, efforts to rebuild the province's economy after the social unrest are currently underway, and Premier Sihle Zikalala is expected to meet with the diplomatic community in Pretoria this morning in a bid to reposition the province as a safe investment destination. The KZN Premier joins us now for more. Premier Zikalala, thanks for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thanks, and thanks for having us in your program.
If we can just start with an update on the state of damage that was caused by the recent unrest in the province, and also perhaps an update on the economy, the GDP, loss to GDP, perhaps I should say, and employment figures at this time.
Well, we estimate that we are going to suffer loss of jobs and a decrease in the GDP. As the province, we've gone through a challenging moment where industries were halted and disrupted, and most of our factories, some of our factories were even banned. It is because of that reason that we have engaged on a program to rebuild the relationship and the confidence of the foreign, of the ambassadors, but also the foreign investors as well as the domestic investors into the province. It will be known that some of the companies that are situated in the province come from other countries. If you will talk of LG, for instance, it is a company that comes from South Korea, and it suffered a huge damage. So we are going to face serious job losses as well as the decrease in the economic output, the GDP. But we believe the impact will be able to be kept as we go forward and rebuild.
So, as you say, this morning, meeting with the diplomatic community, what would be the target for you, and what will the message be that you'll be sending when you meet them?
The target will be firstly to engage with those companies that are, with those ambassadors of countries, of companies that are already doing work in KwaZulu-Natal. So that is the first priority. We have to engage with Singapore ambassador, we have to engage with South Korea, we have to engage with China and others who have already made huge investments in KwaZulu-Natal. Secondly, we have to engage with others like your European ambassadors, as well as other targeted in Africa ambassadors, so that we build that confidence. The message is clear. We need to be transparent to them, and we will be clear that we are rebuilding the province, and all that have happened, we are addressing it through the programs such as tightening the security in the industrial parks, ensure that there is security, but also build a favorable conditions where those companies that are struggling get supported with incentives. Thirdly, we must also ensure that we build social cohesion, because others, while they are afraid and still concerned that there was a disruption that took place, others are concerned about also instability coming from a racial tension. So we need to address all of those concerns.
And those are valid concerns given what happened in the province. But what guarantee, Premier, can you give that the scenes that we saw play out a few weeks ago will not play out again? You talk about beefing up security, but how? How exactly have you done that, and where was that security in the previous incidents?
Well, I think the first is to ensure that we review the security strategy. As you would notice, the president was quite clear in accepting that the security cluster did not respond quick enough and in a way that was expected. And from there, we are consolidating the strength and the capacity of our police force. But we are not a society that must always be policed. We must bring order in communities and values that will bring society together. And that's why we have started an intense program of moral regeneration and social cohesion, building leadership, ensure that we build strong community leadership, and ensure that even within the workplace there is a strong leadership from federations, and try to address all challenges proactively. Some of those challenges that have played out would be the tension in the freight and logistic industry, where you've seen a lot, a banning of trucks even before the unrest. That was happening. And we need to ensure that we are proactive in dealing with complaints that affect various sectors of our industries.
Fair enough, but I still don't hear exactly how you are going to prevent it going forward, because as you say, Mr. Premier, the President also, acknowledging that law enforcement did not act as speedily, as effectively as they should have at the time. But what was the reason for that? Because how are you going to address it if you don't know why it didn't happen in the first place?
Well, firstly, is the reason were clear, and the police have presented those reasons. Part of what they could not do was to intervene using live ammunition, which we all agree with that they could not, and that would have not been the best intervention. Now we need to ensure that we improve on non-violence interventions, such as having enough water cannons and be able to deal with protest. But as I have said, we need to beef up the security strategy, capacitate the police, but community must be engaged, and within communities, we must build a sense of responsibility where we take the responsibility to rebuild our society together. And that's why I have labored on the program of social cohesion, which we are rolling out in all areas.
But I'm still not convinced, Mr. Premier, and I'll tell you why. Because when you say this message that the police did not want to intervene using live ammunition, let's assume for a moment that that is the only reason, that's the overarching reason why they did not step in timeously. It took days. Let's say they were not prepared on the first day, the second day, even the third day. So when you get to day 4 and 5 of the looting, why was there still no intervention without live ammunition? And to your point that they would now have beefed up the other interventions, how many water cannons do you now have in KwaZulu-Natal to deal with, God forbid, the next time you have these sort of unrest? How many other, pieces of equipment have you brought in that would allow you to deal with this matter, not using live ammunition against protesters?
Well, the issue of not using live ammunition is one of number of constraints that affected the intervention of the security forces, in particular the police. But there are a number of others, including the capacity in terms of personnel, and all of those are being attended as we go forward. We must use security to deal with challenges of this nature going forward. But what is also important is to prevent such things from happening. And that is the main strategy, because we must address the causal factors and build on that. The security enforcement must be also a strategy that is just a beef up to address when there are problems. But what is important is to address and ensure that we are proactive in dealing with problems when they emerge.
And one of the causal issues is, of course, political. Has that been addressed?
Well, the political issues will be addressed at a level of the political structures, and I believe they are being addressed. Issues of unity in the movement are being addressed, and we believe that all of those issues we will be able to ensure that they are addressed to a point where the movement will be able to provide a coherent leadership and the state will function effectively.
So as you go into this conversation with investors, are you able to guarantee them that the scenes that we saw over the past few weeks will not happen again? Are you able to give them a guarantee?
Yes, we have to assure them that the scenes we saw a few weeks ago will not recur. And one of the things that we are doing is to improve security around our industrial parks, because you will know that most of our industrial parks were not so much affected. If you talk of your Richards Bay Industrial Development Zone, was not that affected. If you talk of the Dube Trade Port, was not affected. Now we need to look on other industrial parks. How do we improve security around those areas? Those are areas like your Konopia, near the King Shaka Airport. Those are areas like your industrial parks in Pinetown and Kettle Ridge and other areas. So we are improving on ensuring that even in those areas, we put the infrastructure that we have put in these special economic zones.
And just finally, Premier, has there been any companies that have actually abandoned their investments in the province because of the unrest?
No. Instead, we are working with them to ensure that they grow their investment. You know that Toyota was concerned. We've met with them. We are working with them to address their concerns. You will know that companies like Sumitomo were also, and DeFi, were also affected in Ladysmith. We are working with them, and among others, we will meet with the ambassador of Turkey, as it is known that DeFi is from Turkey, and we will be meeting with them to ensure that we allay their fears.
Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, KZN Premier Sihle Zikalala, speaking to us on initiatives to rebuild investor confidence in the province following a recent unrest which saw looting incidents across parts of the province.